Good evening. It is Friday, August 20th, 2021. When you look at the newspapers and read the news media, the world condition seems to be deteriorating in front of us. The pandemic numbers are rising. The situation in Afghanistan is just deplorable. Haiti is suffering from earthquake and tropical storm. And all over, people are hurting and struggling. When we look at the world with our eyes, we are overwhelmed and fearful. And maybe we ought to be. This evening, I invite you to look with me at Psalm 3. It's a record of the prayer that King David prayed when he was suffering the insurrection by his son Absalom. David had to flee Jerusalem, and it seemed like a very dark time for he and his family. And here's how David prayed. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation, 2nd edition. O Lord, I have so many enemies. So many are against me. So many are saying, God will never rescue him. But you, O Lord, are a shield around me. You are my glory, the one who holds my head high. I cried out to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy mountain. I lay down and slept, yet I woke up in safety, for the Lord was watching over me. I'm not afraid of 10,000 enemies who surround me on every side. Arise, O Lord, rescue me, my God. Slap all my enemies in the face, shatter the teeth of the wicked. Victory comes from you, O Lord. May you bless your people. First, David gives a recognition of the reality of the gravity of the situation. He says, I've got a whole bunch of enemies, and they're all saying God will not rescue me. David was not naive about the gravity of his situation. Prayer is not ignoring the reality of a messed up condition. Prayer requires an honest and intelligent appreciation of the reality of the situation. Then David gives a strong statement of faith in his appreciation of the relationship that he has with God. God is his shield. God is his glory. And God holds his head up. When David was downcast, it's as if God grabs his chin and tilts his head up to look up instead of down. Next, David gives a testimony of his past remembrances with God. He says, I cried out, and God answered. He says, I slept well because God watched over me. David had many years of experience trusting God and God caring for him. He had no reason to believe or expect that God would forsake him now. His strength of faith had been built over many years of following God. Making mistakes? Certainly. Failing? Definitely. But trusting God? Most assuredly. Then David gives a strong affirmation of faith. I'm not afraid when I'm surrounded on all sides. I trust God even when I cannot see a way out. David says, I trust God in all things and at all times. Do you hear how this prayer goes together? David expressing his faith in the might and awesome power of God to care for him and protect him. It was only at this point that David shares his requests. He says, Arise, O Lord, and rescue me. Oh, and while you're at it, just slap the teeth right out of my enemies. Now, I don't know if God left a bunch of toothless warriors on the battlefield, but I understand David's sentiment when he's saying, Lord, rescue me, and let my enemies take one on the chin too. Victory comes from God, David exclaims, and then gives a plea for God to bless the people. When we look at the prayers of King David, we see a very real trust in God, built up through years of experience in faithful living. Never the expectation that he would be perfect, but the experience of daily walking with God in faith. When we mess up, we get back on track. We fall down, we get up and get going again. When the situation was very bleak, David trusted God to turn it around. As believers, we may not be able to see how the next few months go, but we know the end of the story. God wins. Sin and death are defeated. David was restored to his throne, and God granted tremendous victory to David. But oh, the cost in his family relationships. May we begin to pray like David, with a faith built upon years of experience and belief that God will bring rescue and victory, even when we can't see it. Maybe most especially when we cannot see it. God bless you.